Kyle, something feels a little bit different about this episode. I can't quite put my finger on it, but regardless, today we're going to talk about a big boy publication putting 6 Canucks on their trade bait list. Let's blow up the list. We're going to tell you which of those 6 Canucks is most likely to be traded. That's coming up today on Locked On Canucks.
You're Locked On Canucks, your daily podcast on the Vancouver Canucks. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
All right. Thanks for hitting the play button on today's episode of Locked On Canucks. My name is Trevor Beggs, Canucks writer and part-time credentialed media member. You like that, Kyle? Part-time credentialed media member for Daily Hive Vancouver. Before we dive into the show today, we want to thank you for listening to Locked On Canucks, your team every day. Make sure you subscribe or follow for free on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. And hey, if you are watching on YouTube today, you're seeing Kyle and I recording Locked On Canucks together in the flesh for the first time, rocking the flowers. On today's episode, again, we're going to talk about those 6 Canucks who made the Athletics trade bait list. We're going to tell you which Canucks is most likely to be traded, and we're going to give one destination for each of those 6 Canucks, where they might end up. But first and foremost, Kyle, you're three-dimensional today, buddy.
Hey.
What's going on?
Hey, man. How's it going? In the flesh and 30 years old. You're actually one of the first friends I've linked up with that have seen this new version of me, which is, it's fitting, man, because you and I go way back. We met a long time ago, right before we entered our 20s, and here I am, an old man, a wise man, and you better respect me because you got to respect your elders, okay? Real talk. Locked On Canucks, your team every day. Kyle Bowen, Trevor Beggs. We'll get to the comments at the end of the show because we do save the best for last, all right? Beggsy, another trade list episode in the middle of the playoffs, and I'm up for it. Normally, I'm pessimistic about this type of stuff because I'd rather talk about games, but, it is May, and Vancouver doesn't play hockey in May. They've only done it, 3 times in their 50-plus years of playing hockey? But the Vegas Golden Knights, they've done it, 4 times now, which is something? I know. We'll save that for another episode.
Sadness. We already kicked off this week talking about how the Canucks are the most miserable franchise of all time. So I've let out my misery for the week talking about the Vancouver Canucks. But hey, it's the offseason now for 28 NHL teams. And yeah, there's no trades that are going to happen for, at least another month and a half now. But for now, let's talk about it, okay? The Athletic released their offseason trade bait list, and 6 Canucks made the list, okay? Only 2 Canucks made the top 30, but then they had the others we're keeping an eye on, and 4 other Canucks made that list as well. So let's rip through it quick. So at number 10, Brock Besser. Okay, Brock Besser. He doesn't want to be traded, but he's in the Athletics top 10 for guys who are trade bait.
Whoa.
Connor Garland was the other player who made the list at number 18. And then 4 guys made the honorable mentions list. It was JT Miller, Tyler Myers, Nils Höglander, and Jack Rathbone. Do any of those names surprise you for being on that list?
No, not at all. I mean, the Jack Rathbone thing, maybe just a little because I kind of forgot about him being, a part of the big club and being mentioned in articles. But I can see that happening for sure. We kind of saw it with DiPietro, right? Disgruntled prospect / young player just before entering 24, 25 years old, get him out of the system and give him a new chance somewhere else. So I can actually see that happening, sooner than later, maybe one of the first moves. But yeah, no surprises there, man. I guess maybe I'm lying a bit because one of the surprises could be that JT Miller made the honorable mentions list instead of the actual trade board, which is cool because I feel as if more and more people are realizing that it's not going to happen.
Progress, baby. JT Miller, most likely going to be a Vancouver Canuck for the long term. I know we've talked about that a few times here on Locked On Canucks. Every dayers know that, okay? They know that. And they also know that you don't want the Canucks to trade JT Miller. You're actually probably the biggest JT Miller fan in Vancouver.
Come on, man. I'm probably one of the biggest Justin Timberlake fans of all time. And they talk about trauma and your childhood trauma. I'm not saying JT brought me childhood trauma, but I remember stuff from my childhood, and some of my earliest moments with music had to do with, JT, Rock Your Body, right? Gone by NSYNC, A Girlfriend by NSYNC. Those are the songs that I was singing. So maybe that's why I have not just a fascination around JT Miller, but a large amount of respect for the dude. And I also think a lot of that respect does come from the unlikelihood of him getting traded. So I'm not even going to waste my energy there. I'm going to support the guy because next season matters.
Yeah.
Next season matters.
Next season matters. And again, if the Canucks are going to trade JT Miller, it is going to be in the next month and a half, though, because his full no move clause kicks in on July 1st. Again, I don't think you or I are neither of us are predicting this, right? We talked about it a couple weeks ago. Again, there was a report from Daily Faceoff that the Canucks, Tyler Myers and JT Miller made their trade bait list. And we just kind of did an episode talking about how there's no way that these guys are getting traded. At least no way that both of them are getting traded. But speaking of that, of these 6 guys on this list, I kind of want to ask you, who is the most likely of those 6 players to be traded?
I hate this answer, but I think there's a lot of truth to it, and that's because there is a logjam of forwards and there's a lot of salary to be dumped. So I think it's going to be Niels Höglander, man, because I think he is the sweetener. And I think the Canucks might get desperate. They might get desperate because the Canucks are a desperate team, and I could definitely see them saying, you know what, let's get Tyler Myers out of here right now, and he's a 6th or 7th defenseman for. That may sound harsh, but again, we've seen a lot of Tyler Myers. Like, this guy's fallen down the depth chart for most teams, like 100%. A 5, 6, 7 defenseman who's making a ton of money. Yeah, we'll take him, but we also want something else. And I think that sweetener could be Niels Höglander.
That's sad.
That is sad. And
that
then
makes me sad.
Even if you want to take it to the Brock Besser level, I think Connor Garland, they have to do their best to make a hockey trade because he's still a valuable player, and they just got to do their work, make sure that there's value there and they don't have to throw a sweetener in. But I could see it with Brock Besser too, because he's got a couple years left and he's actually, he could, I guess that's the couple years matters, being paid a lot of money. So it's like, okay, we'll take Brock, who's underperforming, but we want a sweetener, and that sweetener could be Niels Höglander.
Yeah. Yeah, the fact that you bring up Höglander is an interesting point, because all this talk, for the most part, is surrounding Brock Besser and Connor Garland, because those 2 guys making too much money, not really enough room for all of them in the top 6. We just talked about it this week. Connor Garland playing in the 3rd line, which really made no sense because he deserves a bigger opportunity. So I hate to agree with you. I could see it being Niels Höglander. But the fact that he could be a sweetener in a trade if they are trying to clear cap space, again, I think you and I both talked about it. Again, every day is no. But I think probably the best move for the Canucks is that break glass in case for emergency and buy out Oliver Ekman-Larsson, because at the end of the day, if you're trading, like if you're adding sweeteners to get rid of Brock Besser, Connor Garland, doesn't really make sense. Even Tyler Myers, like, you're trading a first, maybe you're trading Niels Höglander, none of it really makes sense for the Vancouver Canucks. Again, buying out Ekman-Larsson isn't really, it's obviously got a lot of long-term pain attached to it, but man, is it an easy get out of jail free card for this season.
Dude, it definitely is.
Yeah.
I have a tough time thinking that the Canucks are going to be able to win a trade like this because of my past. We just brought up the word trauma as well. Like 100% I could see worse come to worse and them having to throw sweeteners in. But again, the Garland trade, if that happens, do your best to make it a hockey trade.
Yeah. For a third line center. We talked about that too. Go check that episode out here on Locked On Canucks.
Yeah. Well, why wasn't Beauvillier on this list?
Yeah, we talked about it before. I just don't think a lot of people, he's not really on a lot of people's radar. And maybe I'll shout out Miter Daily Hive, Rob Williams. I think he had an article about 4 Canucks wingers who could be traded. And he mentioned Besser, Garland, and Beauvillier, and Mikheyev.
Oh, wow.
Which kind of surprised me too. But I think it's the fact that Beauvillier came here just like a few months ago, had success. But yeah, I agree with you. I think he could be on that trade bait list too. I'll give you my answer for who the player I think is most likely to be traded, and I think is Jack Rathbone. I just don't think Jack Rathbone has a spot on this team anymore. I don't think the Canucks really want him on this team, to be honest with you. He strikes me as a guy who could go to another organization and tear it up. And I'll give a destination for Jack Rathbone in our second segment here on Locked On Canucks. But yeah, I think Jack Rathbone is most likely to be moved. And of all the players on that list, yeah, I definitely think he's the most likely to be traded.
Yeah, it makes sense, man. It makes sense. And I think it's the nice thing to do. I know it's business and the sports business, and maybe there's not a lot of room for nice moves out of being friendly or compassionate, but it's time, man. Give this guy a chance somewhere else. And if he can't crack another roster, then it's probably not the NHL for him in the immediate future, because again, he couldn't crack this roster with a couple coaches and, like who was playing defense for this team last year? Like everyone on the AHL team was playing defense for this team. Wolanin, how do you say his name?
Christian Wolanin.
Yeah. We had a lot of Burrows playing.
And Breezeball.
Breezeball got a deal. So. Yeah, you see the skill in Rathbone, and you see what he can do, but it's a pretty fine line for those types of players, like that player mold, to make the jump. They have to really excel offensively, and look at that one guy. What's his name? I'm not putting Rathbone on his level, but remember how like Gustafson, who plays on the Leafs now,
Eric Gustafson, yeah.
He's just a PP specialist and picking up points, but he's never used.
It is hard in the NHL now to be a sheltered third pairing defenseman because most NHL teams have 3 lines that can score. So it is really hard to shelter a defenseman like Jack Rathbone. And you see it across the NHL. I think Eric Gustafson actually is another great example. It's easier to kind of have like a 4th line power play specialist forward, but for defensemen, it's really tough. And obviously the Canucks have their guy in Quinn Hughes. They have another guy in Hirona who can create some offense. There just isn't really a lot of space for Jack Rathbone on the team. And as much as I like the skill, I think it's best he's going to go to another organization.
You've been to multiple Canuck games this year. I don't know. You probably didn't see much of Jack Rathbone, but maybe last year you
saw him
did.
in the press box.
You don't. Do you see like? Do you see anything though?
I do. I do
too. I see more than just a skilled defenseman. I see somebody who's good on his skates and makes a good first pass. And you like to think that the other things, like the other tangibles, can be taught.
Yeah.
But like, do you still believe in Jack Rathbone?
I do believe in Jack Rathbone. All he really has to do is pick his spots in the NHL to take those risks because he's got more skill than a lot of NHL defensemen that I've seen. It's just, again, when you see an undersized defenseman making high-risk passes and getting burned, it really stands out. But Jack Rathbone's got more skill than most NHL defensemen. But he just hasn't put it all together yet. Granted, he hasn't had a lot of opportunity at NHL level. His development's been hampered by COVID, playing high school hockey, and all this stuff. And
playing with, like, think about who he's playing with when he's up here, too. The Canucks have literally had, for the last couple of years, albeit maybe like Luke Schenn and Ethan Bear, for the last couple of years, they've had mediocre or below defensemen playing almost every day in the NHL level outside of Quinn Hughes, Ethan Bear, and Luke Schenn, which is crazy. Like those last 2 names was like, yo, you're barely scraping the standard, So that might hinder his development too, where like he's playing NHL games when he's up here, but his partner is like OEL or Myers or Burrows or like whoever he's been playing with. It's tough, man. It's tough being a Vancouver Canucks defenseman, man. It's hard to develop while you're playing games, again, while being a defenseman for the Vancouver Canucks.
Yeah, it feels like 2 years have really gone by for Jack Rathbone. This turned into a bit of a Jack Rathbone show, but he's a player worth talking about. It's funny to think about. He started the beginning of the 21-22 season in the opening night lineup paired with Kyle Burrows, and it feels like he's gone backwards since then. It's almost hard to believe. But so coming up in segment 2, again, we're gonna look at these 6 players that made the Athletics trade bait list and pick a trade destination for each player. That's coming up on the other side, but. The Canucks, they're far away from being a championship team. But we're going to talk about championship team here because for a championship team, it's all about making sure every player is the perfect fit. It's the same when it comes to your vehicle. Every part needs to fit just right. So the next time you need parts and accessories, head to eBay Motors. With eBay Guaranteed Fit, you can be sure every part you need fits right the first time around. Just add your ride to My Garage and look for the green check mark to know that the part will fit or get your money back. Because just like in sports, confidence is the name of the game when you shop on eBay Motors. And with over 122 million parts to choose from, you'll be back in the game in no time. After all, it's easy to bring home a win when the right parts are guaranteed. So Kyle, get the right parts, the right fit, and the right price at ebaymotors.com. Let's ride. Eligible items only, exclusions apply.
Man, I'm never gonna say it, man. Trust me. Too loyal to myself. Hey, man, I did see that Russell Wilson, the whole "Let's Ride" thing. West Coast. We can talk a little bit of Russell Wilson. I'm not gonna say his taglines, but again, we can talk a little bit about him. He was at the Denver Nuggets game yesterday, and I wonder what type of like applause, like do people still believe in him out there, in Denver? Because he was by far and away the worst quarterback in the league last year. Again, I know Locked On Canucks, but West Coast. The best coast of Canada, a lot of you Seahawk fans out here.
Yeah, maybe we'll quickly plug Locked On Seahawks. I know they're doing a lot of great work over there. They got like over 13,000 YouTube subscribers, man. You know, we
Oh, good
gotta
for
get
them.
up there, man. We gotta get
Hey,
up
man,
there.
we're getting there. Okay, comparison is the thief of joy. Okay,
Yeah,
that's what
true
they
enough,
say.
true
So
enough.
stop
We're
doing
2 months
that.
in. We're only 2 months in here.
No, we're happy with whoever's watching this and the 450 plus people that have subscribed and leaving comments, man. One love. We're with you. We're with you, man. Fans first. Has there ever been a Vancouver Canuck that has disappointed that much via like an acquisition, like a trade? You know, we got this guy. Don't mention Mark Messier because it's a trade. You know, that's a good question.
I mean, that is a good question. I'm sure that, like Erica Branson comes to mind for sure.
Mm-hmm. Yes, sir, dude.
Brandon Sutter. If I want to go back,
oh man,
yeah, there's a lot of betting trades where I think
Oh,
a
man.
player could fall into that category. You know, if we go back to the 80s, I think, you know, Barry Peterson comes here, has injury issues, has one good season for the Canucks. Meanwhile, Cam Neely goes and tears it up. Had to bring up that one because we shouted the Cam Neely former Canuck of the week here on Locked On Canucks on a regular basis. So yeah, the return for Cam Neely being Barry Peterson has to be one of the bigger disappointments in Canucks history as well.
Trade talk, man. Trade talk and just offseason talk in May. Just another day of being a Vancouver Canucks fan, man. Let's talk more about these players. I have a feeling you're going to mention Miller off the top here.
Oh, I was just going to go in order of how the Athletic had it on their list.
Okay.
And do you want me to give my 6 teams for each player? Do you want to shout out a team for a couple players here?
Each player, like
we're trading all 6 of these Canucks that made the list to a team.
Shout out to this list, man. Shout out to the Athletic for doing our job, man.
We're doing the heavy lifting here, but I'll start. Brock Besser. I got him going to Detroit, and I'm doing this because when we talked about what the Canucks roster will look like with Connor Bedard, I projected the 2023-24 Canucks roster, and I had the Canucks trading Brock Besser to Detroit for Andrew Kopp. Again, Andrew Kopp, he signed for 4 more years at $5.6 million per season, whereas Brock Besser is 2 more years at 6.6. The Detroit Red Wings were one of the worst teams in terms of scoring at even strength in the NHL this season. You know, Andrew Kopp wasn't the perfect fit in year one. You know, maybe they go out and get a winger like Brock Besser to boost the scoring. And I could see it happening, man. I could see it happening. You know, so I know there's a commenter who thought I was dreaming, but I'm not saying necessarily a straight up Besser for Kopp, but maybe something like that. I think Kopp would be a perfect fit in Vancouver, and maybe Detroit's thinking like, oh, we should not have signed this guy long term. He's not what we thought he was.
I think people may get mad at you because is it like trading a bad contract for another bad contract that has 2 more years left on that bad contract? And just for the sake of, plugging up a hole, which is an important hole, the third line center spot. Yeah, I can see the comments coming after you for that one. But this is what happens, the Canucks put themselves in a hole, through the last like 5-6 years, they're capped out, they have holes, and they're going to be desperate, man. And that's scary, dude.
Yeah, I agree. You want to tackle the next one on the list, Connor Garland? Where do you think Connor Garland's getting traded to if he gets traded?
Great question. I could see a team like the Rangers being interested in Connor Garland. I could definitely see. Who am I trying to go here?
The Rangers could be losing Kane and Tarasenko, so I actually think that's a good one.
Yeah. You just, like they're built for the playoffs. They're still going to make it. And I think Connor Garland brings a lot to the table.
Yeah.
Okay, well, that's my one team.
Okay, the Rangers. All right. Maybe I'll give you the next one too, because you already talked about where this guy's getting traded. But JT Miller, I know biggest JT Miller fan in Vancouver here. But if JT Miller gets traded, where is he going?
Oh man, I don't think it's Pittsburgh.
No, probably not anymore.
Because the guy who was
still has a local connection though, right?
It's not going to happen, bro. It's not going to happen. The new GM, whoever goes in there, is not going to acquire an $8 million 30-year-old dude. It's not the right move. It's not the right move.
Maybe that's why Hextall got fired. It's like, we got to fire this guy before he trades 2 first-round picks for JT Miller.
The Rangers are a good option for JT Miller as well. I know they have they're spending a lot of money on different players, but maybe they can make that work as well. Because I feel as if the Rangers showed that this year they need a little bit of snarl in their lineup,
Yeah.
Especially in that room and around the top 6. Now, that being said, when I was watching recap videos of the Rangers season coming to an end, a lot of the fans were talking about how they were coasting for most of the season, just relying on skill to get them there. And I don't know if JT Miller's a guy to like totally change that philosophy, when it comes to like hustling and making every game count. So who do you got?
Well, you mentioned this last week that JT Miller's getting traded to Colorado. And now that Landeskog's out for all the 2023-24 season, Colorado could probably use a boost in their top 6. So maybe JT Miller is a guy that makes sense there. So,
and a team that I did mention also was Carolina, but I don't think that's going to happen because they made the Final Four. They're proving that, this depth that they have throughout their lineup and their snarl and their tenacity and their belief in Brendan Moore in the system is enough because this team got there and they don't have 3 of their best offensive players. Well, I shouldn't say 3 of their best offensive players, like 3 pillars on offense. You know?
Right.
I know Shvechnikov, if I'm saying that right. You're welcome. He's a great player. He's proved it for years for them. Pacioretty was, a flyer, still a great player, but got hurt early on. And Teravainen is perfect for the top 6.
There you go.
Yeah.
Perfecto.
And they're all gone, and they're still there.
Yeah,
they might make the Stanley Cup Finals.
Yeah,
and it's going to be a matchup where I know Locked On Canucks, but I'm really excited to see Aho versus Tkachuk.
Yeah,
I'm really excited to see that because we don't get a lot of Carolina Hurricanes games, but when they play the Canucks, he's super noticeable, and I think it's because he has a little bit of beef with Pettersson because he's always going after him.
Yeah.
He's got the snarl too.
Yeah, I think Aho does get disrespected a bit. Like,
he's so good, bro.
Yeah,
he's so good, man.
Yeah, is he the new Barkov, like the most underrated player in the league?
Well, maybe, man.
Yeah, maybe not anymore if they make the Cup final here. We'll see what happens there. I'll tackle this next one. Tyler Myers. It would make sense that if the Canucks traded Tyler Myers, he's going to like Chicago, right? The Canucks are just going to pony up, give up another first-round pick, trade him to Chicago. I hate that. So I went the dumb GM route and said that the Ottawa Senators require Tyler Myers.
I could definlineuly see that.
They already traded for Travis Hamonic. May as well just go for the all Canucks on the right side of the defense.
Yep.
Tyler Myers, line up. Round out that right side of the defense. Ottawa, there you go. He's yours. Shout out to the Locked On Senators podcast. We'll give you Tyler Myers for free. That's our gift.
Boom.
Thank you. You're welcome. You said Nils Höglander was the most likely Canuck to be traded. You got a destination for him?
No, I don't. Unless, no. It wouldn't make sense because you brought up the Detroit thing. No, that wouldn't make sense because we're taking on a bad contract there. I don't have a team because he's the sweetener. I don't think teams are out there, trying to make sure Nils Höglander is a part of the roster, part of the biggest part of the. I don't know. Really don't know.
I put down Tampa Bay. It just seems like the kind of player Tampa Bay would go afterwards. Like, he's going to be a cheap player. He can make an impact at a low cost. Maybe there's a world where it's like a Höglander for Ross Colton type of deal. Obviously, Ross Colton's got more value. I mean, that guy scored the Stanley Cup winning goal in 2021. But yeah, if Ross Colton's priced himself out of Tampa Bay, maybe there's some kind of Ross Colton for Höglander deal out there.
Is he an RFA this year?
Or Ross Colton's an RFA, so is Nils Höglander as well. And the last but not least on the list, Jack Rathbone. I got him going to the Florida Panthers. Like, they just seem to be a team that just takes some defensemen off the waiver wire. And that's where Jack Rathbone could end up, right? It might be hard to find a deal for Jack Rathbone unless it's like a Ole Uelevi trade where it happens like right before the season starts. But yeah, I can see Jack Rathbone going to Florida and tearing it up there. And despite Florida going on this run, like, their defense isn't incredibly deep or good, in my opinion. So yeah, I could see, like a Jack Rathbone, Radko Gudas pairing. Best of both worlds right there, right?
What a player.
Best of both worlds right there. Shoot, how are you going to do comment corner? You got to get to your computer. You're like 3 feet away.
Come on, man. Come on, technology. How old are you, buddy? Come on, man. Technology got a phone. You can read the YouTube comments on here on Locked On Canucks, all right? The fans, the people comment on the shows. We're nothing without them, man.
All right. Yeah, we are nothing without the people. And we're also nothing without this next sponsor. Kyle, you and I are getting older, grumpier, and crustier. And for guys like us, we need to prioritize comfort. That's why we got to chuck out the skinny jeans and slide our hairy legs into some Bird Dogs apparel. True story here, okay? When I first put on a pair of Bird Dog shorts, I instantly started moonwalking on the ceiling of my bedroom.
Whoa.
And when I begrudgingly took off my Bird Dog shorts at the end of the day, I was surprised to see that a herd of little mice from Cinderella inside my shorts gave my man parts a beautiful, refreshing manscaping.
What?
True story. And this happened just in time for my wife's birthday.
What's going on here?
So yeah, Bird Dogs, they are way more than just a pair of shorts. Find out for yourself by going to birddogs.com/LockedOnNHL. And when you enter promo code LockedOnNHL, they'll throw in a free custom Bird Dogs Yeti style tumbler with every order. Manscaping mice, probably not included.
That's something else, man.
It's a true story.
That's something else.
It's a family podcast though, so I won't give you any more details, but it's a true story.
Nuts. That scared the
It is nuts.
crap out
Yeah,
of me.
my nuts thank bird dogs.
Yeah. There you go. Locked On Canucks. Kyle Bowen, Trevor Beggs, the best part of the show, comment corner here on the program. The people, man. I got a couple birthday wishes too from the people. These guys are, you know what? I was about to say these guys are strangers. They're not strangers. They're friends.
No, they're family.
They're friends.
They're family.
Okay, they're friends.
It's a Locked On Canucks family right here.
Okay, let's talk about this guy. Okay, right here. Who is this guy? Yanar Palasaniniemi. Okay, he's a Hawks fan, but he keeps watching our program. He's like, I'm a Hawks fan, and this is a trade I think we will look for. We take Besser's contract in the 11th pick, and you receive the Tampa Bay Lightning's 19th pick. I guess they had the Lightning's pick in this year's draft, so maybe it's the 19th pick. Going to Vancouver, and Chicago gets Besser and the 11th pick. Wow, this is a pretty good comment.
Yeah, I hate the idea of this trade, though. I know this guy's maybe just trying to rile me up because, he saw us all riled up talking about Bedard going to Chicago. We were pretty pissed off about that. I mean, I personally, I guess you're freeing up $6.6 million in cap space. I just I hate the idea of.
But isn't that like not bad? You're still getting a first round pick. I know you're probably dropping a tier or two.
And dropping from 11th to 19th the big. First round of the draft, it's a bit of a big drop.
And in deep draft, so but you're getting rid of.
If I'm the Canucks, I say no.
Wow. Honestly, if I'm the Canucks, I think I say yes to this, man.
Yeah, it's a great comment though. Maybe let us know in the comments what you guys are thinking. Would you trade Brock Besser and the 11th overall pick, which belongs to the Canucks, to Chicago for the 19th overall pick, which they got from Tampa Bay?
I think, yeah, that's what he's saying. I think it would be scary to see like the Canucks do something else other than something like this, to be honest. Because I don't trust them. Yeah, I don't trust them. I feel like they're going to give up a lot to get rid of one of these contracts, and that is pretty scary. Okay, for real. Next comment. What do we got here? I asked the people: Garland, Besser, Opovillier. We had somebody comment. I think their name is Leela. He said, "Happy birthday, Kyle." Or maybe it's a she. Best return would be for Beauvillier because he doesn't have a contract at the end of next season. But I guess you're saying that's not the case because he's not that appetizing of a player. So what would that be? Like Beauvillier is going for a second round pick. Beauvillier, can they get a center for Beauvillier to fill in playing that third line spot? I don't know. I don't think so. I don't think the trade value is there like that.
No, because the trade value just doesn't exist for wingers right now. Unless the cap goes up more than $1 million, which is right now it's projected to go up $1 million. Mm-hmm. If that happens, it's going to look very similar to last offseason where guys like Oliver Bjorkstrand are going for a third and a fourth. Mm-hmm. I would expect something similar for Beauvillier if he's going to hit the market. Mm-hmm. And maybe even less for Garland and Besser just because of the contracts they have. So it's why, the deadline we saw like Tanner Jeannot go for like a king's ransom. Whereas again, guys like Bjorkstrand go for like a third and fourth round pick. It all has to do with salary right now, and it's going to be that way until the cap situation in the NHL is alleviated a bit, which doesn't look like it's going to be this summer.
Yeah, man. Speaking of the summer, man, what are the chances, man, that you and I came through with the flower shirts today? I wasn't planned. People are not going to believe that. They're going to think we're a bunch of cornballs that did this, just to perform on Locked On Canucks. But no, this is natural, baby.
No, it's au naturel.
Yeah, it's au naturel, man, and I can't wait to, I can't wait. I'm going to be patient for it, but, just to glow up a bit, have the bank account rolling in so I can start swagging the F out, for real. Who knows what I'll be rocking on these episodes, man. Maybe the most, I want to say the most stylish hockey podcaster out there, but I'd bring something else to the table. I'll tell you that much.
Yeah, well, you bring a lot to the table, and who brings a lot to the table?
What
is the listeners? Okay. Because we're nothing without the listeners. So thanks for tuning in to Locked On Canucks, your team every day. Again, a special shout out to those everydayers who have been with us since March 1st and sometime thereafter. And if this is your first time listening, welcome. We love you. Stay a little while because we got shows coming out 5 days a week because it's your team every day, baby. Coming up on Locked On Canucks over the next few days here. Player reviews, they're trickling in. They're trickling in here and there. I do also want to talk about buyouts. We talked about Oliver Ekman-Larsson, but is there anyone else in the Canucks who could be a buyout candidate, and would it make sense to buy out someone else on the Canucks? We'll find that at the network. And I think Kyle and I might take a stroll down memory lane for another episode here as well coming up. But stay tuned to the network to hear that. But for now, I'm Trevor Beggs. That sexy beast is Kyle Bowen, and you've been listening to Locked On Canucks.
Your Locked On Canucks, your daily podcast on the Vancouver Canucks. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.